All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and be straight up. I was not the biggest fan of Flagship February. For those not aware, Flagship February was kind of a beer movement that happened throughout February of 2019. It was started by renowned beer journalist Stephen Valmont out of Canada, I think it is. And what his intended goal was to try to raise awareness for classic American craft beers. On Twitter, he said, "In the spirit of alliteration, how about we make next month Flagship February? The focus would be on drinking faves from the early years, not necessarily exclusively, but frequently. The brands would get a boost and drinkers would be reminded what got them there." Which kind of sounds nice from a historical, nostalgic kind of way. But I almost lost enthusiasm and interest in this as soon as I started scratching slightly below the surface. The beers they're trying to get you to focus on are your classic American craft beers, like your Stone IPAs, your Boston Lagers, your Sierra Nevada Pale Ales, that type stuff. And that's where I got my first little hiccup. Why do we need to raise awareness and encourage people to go out and give money to these companies for these particular brands specifically when they've already got enough money to have massive distribution and massive marketing across the entire nation? And not only that, but the entire world. I'm living in Germany right now, and I was able to pick these up just at a gas station right down the road. I don't really think they need that much more awareness raised about them. Regardless, it did catch on quite fervently around the nation. Bars, breweries, tap rooms, any place you could go and catch a pint, they were doing special deals, sales, bargains, where you could get some of these beers at a discounted rate, or some type of deal, to make it more enticing to pick these up, because I kind of got a feeling that these were probably not selling or moving as much as they would like. So it kind of was a big incentive more for the actual retailers than anything, in my opinion. Additionally, I'm pretty sure these beers were still selling pretty well. They might not be the shiniest, most attractive item that a brewery can put out, but they are a classic staple in their lineup, enough for it to be their flagship. So if it wasn't bringing in the money, then I doubt they would actually continue doing it. So even with the whole Flagship February thing, I mean, I'm sure these were still selling pretty dang well. Now, with that being said, these sales are still on a decline. Flagships across the board have been on a downward spiral. Fat Tire was down 17.5% last year. Boston Lager was down 13.7%. Sierra Nevada Pale Ale down 5.5%, which kind of explains why New Belgium has been pushing that Voodoo Ranger series so hard lately. I think they're trying to be like out with the old flagship, in with the new flagship. So kind of feels like not even the breweries are all that hard behind Flagship February themselves. I guarantee that if Samuel Adams or if Stone weren't able to push these products at all, if they weren't able to make a dime off of these, they probably wouldn't make it anymore. Yes, it is their flagship and it's part of their heritage and their history or whatever, but they're still a business. They still got to make that money, got to chase the paper. But that also brings us to our next point, flash and pizzazz. Mr. Balmont thinks that consumers do have a little bit of an ADD and they are lacking the attention span and the interest to go back to these because of it. Once again, he stated on Twitter, "A lot of beer drinkers have developed a sort of ADD with respect to the beers they drink. So going for a glass of beer at the bar or pub becomes less a pleasant distraction and more a relentless search for what's new and exciting." I do agree that younger, more modern beer drinkers do want something more younger and more modern because that's what represents them. And the beer fanatics, they do like to jump from one hype train to another. They like to get the new, the big, the flashy. That way they can get the Instagram, the Twitter, the YouTube followers, And I do think that beer has become less about sitting down and enjoying a pint. And I do think it has taken that element, because I do still believe that's there, but I think it's also blended it with social media culture. And I do think that that social media culture fusion is what drives most people to make the purchases that they do. But just because that is a motivator for why somebody would actually choose to purchase a particular product doesn't mean that their experience with that same product isn't going to be the same or not as enjoyable. Do some people get a little carried away with the hype? And do some people forget to fully sit down and enjoy and experience the actual beverage? Yes, Certainly, like without a doubt. I actually do think there is an opportunity to have a deeper level of enjoyment with that beer because of the hype. Hunting down your personal white whale, it's hard and it can be stressful and time consuming. But when you finally get it in your hands and you're able to take that first sip of something you worked so hard for, it doesn't just go to your stomach, it touches your soul on the way. And it makes it all worth it. And because of that, it's actually been some of the most relaxing experiences I've ever had with beer. And because of that, one of the most enjoyable too. So I do adamantly disagree with Mr. Baumount on this point. What I think is the real big issue for why people go away from your flagships to the new flashier hype releases is simply because of boredom. Let's face it, the majority of us who grew up drinking craft beer and everything from, our legal adult years, we kind of grew up on these flagships because that was what was available and it was a new burgeoning world and this was, our baby steps into it. But as we continue to delve deeper into this world of craft beer, we learn to experience deeper, richer, fuller, stronger flavors. And I'm about to say something that might hurt some of your feelings. But the simple fact of the matter is, in comparison, these products just don't pack the same punch that they used to. It's kind of hard to go from a super hazy triple IPA that's been quadruple dry hopped and infused with lactose, vanilla, and all types of fruit puree to your standard malty lager, Now, if you are a fan of these types of products, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But there's nothing wrong with trying to chase that insanely hype release with huge crazy flavors and limited quantities either, because it's all part of the evolution. It's all part of the natural progression of the craft beer movement. The reason most often cited to me when I talk to people about why they got into craft beer is because they say they had, they grew up on one pale adjunct lager or another, and then they found some type of gateway beer, whether it was a craft beer or a crafty beer or even just a little bit more of an experimental big beer release. Either way, they experienced something that they hadn't before, and that was deeper, richer, bolder, more interesting flavors. Why is it not the same, and why is it not the next level of progression, natural progression, to go away from these entryway beers into something more bold? Why is it a good thing to move away from subpar flavor in your pale lagers to craft beer, but it's not okay to move away from subpar flavor in craft beer to more adventurous craft beer? And the fact that these products are getting left behind in the dust in a marketplace or a financial aspect isn't enough incentive to guilt me into buying an inferior or subpar or lackluster product when I could spend that money on something that interests me more. Flagship February isn't necessary because loyalty isn't dead. Just these are dying. For example, let's take a look at Aslan, let's take a look at Vale, let's take a look at Bearded Iris, any of your modern day hype treehouse, the hype beer releases that are killing these bad boys off. If you look at any of those breweries, you will see a consistent theme throughout. They do weekly releases and there's a lot of hype around, what's coming out this week or what's coming out this week and never seen again or anything like that. But simultaneously, they've also subtly built a flagship. You will see the same beers returning over and over and over again throughout their annual schedule. And some of them even call it their flagship. So it's not the fact that beer drinkers don't want to drink the same thing over and over and over again. It's the fact that these are dated. People don't want to drink something that isn't in line with what they're currently wanting to drink, and this flagship February movement is just so dumb to me because if it's not what I want to drink, why should I go and buy it? Breweries need to adapt. They need to change. They need to continue to meet the needs, wants, and desires of the consumers. And I'm sorry, I don't care how important this product is to your legacy. If it ain't selling, it ain't selling. Don't push it on me. Don't guilt me into trying to drink more of it, I don't want it. So I feel like we kind of got lost in all of this, but I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting to go back and to drink something a little simpler or a little nostalgic from your early days, While I was going through drinking some of these Stone IPAs, this was my first craft beer. This is what I fell in love with. This is what started everything in the beer movement for me. But while I was drinking, I just couldn't help but think there's so many other things I'd rather be drinking. There's so many things I would have rather spent this money on, and taken less calories, from this and put it towards something better. I do support the idea of looking back on what got us here, and I do like the concept of appreciating where we've come from. But you don't owe these companies anything. If you don't want to drink it, don't drink it. If you don't care about these products, don't support it, because the brewery will have to adapt to you or they'll go away. So drink what you like, drink what you want to, and don't feel the need to be forced to drink something that's not going to be enjoyable. So thank you very much for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this video. It was a little interesting going back and looking at some of the little more esoteric aspects of our industry and culture. So let me know what you thought. Were you a big fan of Flagship February? Did you dislike it like I did? I don't know. Just tell me what your thoughts are. Are you looking forward to next year's? And I guess what's your favorite flagship and why is it so damn important to you? So thank you very much. Like, comment, subscribe. Remember, there's a story in every bottle, and that life is beautiful. Cheers.